All right, everybody, welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be jumping into Matthew chapter 21.
Ooh.
It's a good one. Lots going on. We're going to see Jesus riding into Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Righteous anger in the temple. We're going to try to figure out what's going on with that cursed fig tree. And we've got some parables. Parables are fun. They make you think.
Yeah, they really do. They're challenging. Lots of layers to unpack.
Exactly. So let's dive in. I guess we're starting out in Jerusalem. This is during Passover week. So the city's just packed. And there's Jesus making his grand entrance. It's a big moment.
Huge. It's a fulfilling prophecy. And just the way he comes in is just so intentional.
Yeah. So let's picture this. Jesus sends his disciples to find a donkey. Okay, not that unusual. But then, he tells them, I need a mother donkey with its colt.
Right.
What's the deal with that? And why not just, some majestic horse?
Exactly. I mean, if you're a king, that's what you would expect. But this choice of a donkey, it's a symbol of peace. Humility. It wasn't about establishing some, worldly kingdom through military power.
Yeah.
Right? It was a different kind of kingdom. And then that detail about the colt, I always think that symbolizes those future generations that are going to be part of his kingdom.
It makes you think. So he comes riding in, and the crowds just go nuts, shouting, Hosanna to the Son of David, throwing down their cloaks and waving palm branches. I mean, they are expecting something big here.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what did they understand about Jesus's mission,
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, were they just looking for someone to, overthrow the Romans? Or was there something more, some deeper understanding? Because it seems like Jesus, right from the start, is showing them that being a king, a Messiah, is different than what they expect.
And that's something we're still figuring out today.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so then we go from this, parade atmosphere straight to the temple.
Huge shift.
Big shift. And the temple, which is supposed to be this place of prayer and worship, it's like a crazy market, money changers, animals for sale, all this commotion. And then Jesus, he just loses it.
Yeah, it's such a powerful scene. Tables getting flipped over, doves flying everywhere.
Yeah.
It's righteous anger. He's so passionate about his Father's house. And, the temple should have been a place to connect with God.
Yeah.
But it was all about greed and taking advantage of people.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see this side of Jesus, right?
Right.
He's often portrayed as so gentle and compassionate.
Yeah.
But here he's angry. So does that mean there's room for righteous anger in our lives too, as his followers?
Yeah.
I mean, are we supposed to just ignore injustice when we see it?
That's such a good question. It makes me think, what are the tables that need overturning in our lives, or in our communities? This story, it definitely makes us look at our own hearts, right? How do we react when we see something wrong?
All right. So now we go from this busy city scene to this seemingly random encounter with the fig tree.
Yeah. Right. It's like, wait, what just happened?
I know. Jesus is hungry. He sees this fig tree, all leafy, but no fruit. And he just says, all right, tree, you're done. It seems kind of harsh, right?
I can see why people might think that. But we got to remember, in that area, fig trees, they usually make fruit before the leaves show up. So this tree is kind of a fake, it was promising something but couldn't deliver.
So it's all show, no substance.
Yeah, exactly.
And even the disciples are like, what just happened? The tree just withered up right there. It wasn't just a magic trick, right? There's something deeper going on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think in the bigger picture, Jesus is teaching the disciples about what real faith looks like. True faith, it produces something. It's not just saying the right words. And I think it's a challenge to us too.
For sure.
What kind of fruit are we producing? Is it real, or are we all talk?
Okay, so at this point, the religious leaders, they're feeling pretty threatened by Jesus. I mean, everything he's doing is just shaking things up.
Yeah.
And they don't like it one bit. So they finally confront him. They want to know, who do you think you are? What gives you the authority to do all this? It's like a showdown in the temple courts.
And Jesus, being Jesus, throws it right back at them.
Right.
He asks them about John the Baptist. Where did his authority come from? Heaven or just some guy? It was brilliant.
It's like he totally outsmarted them. If they say John's authority was from God, then they look like hypocrites because they didn't listen to him. But if they say it was just human, then they're going to make the crowd angry because they love John.
They're trapped.
Yeah, they're trapped.
Yeah.
But it's more than just a clever tactic, right?
Yeah.
It feels like he's trying to make a bigger point here.
Absolutely. He's pushing us to look at our own beliefs. Like, especially when we're questioning someone else, are we being honest with ourselves? Are we really open to the truth? Or are we just trying to win an argument?
Okay, so now we're going to get into some parables. Jesus was a master storyteller, and he loved using these stories to teach these like really deep truths in a way that you just don't forget. So first up, the parable of the two sons. A father asks his two sons to go work in his vineyard.
Simple enough.
Right. One son says, nope, not doing it. But then he changes his mind and actually goes and works. The other one's like, yeah, Dad, sure thing. But then he never shows up. So who really obeyed the father?
Oh, it's so good. He's showing the difference between just talking the talk and actually walking the walk.
Exactly. And he was really calling out the religious leaders here. They were all about appearances, but their lives didn't match up with their words.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, too. Saying all the right things, but not really living it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah, me too. It's a constant challenge, right?
Yeah.
To make sure our actions line up with what we believe.
All right, get ready for this next parable. Things are about to get a little intense. This one's called the parable of the tenants. So there's this landowner, he rents out his vineyard, and he sends his servants to collect his share of the fruit.
Sounds fair.
Right. But the tenants, they're bad news. They mistreat the servants, and they even kill some of them. The landowner, he keeps sending more servants.
Oh, no.
Hoping they'll come to their senses, but nope. Same thing happens. Finally, he sends his own son. He figures, surely they'll respect him, but they kill him too. It's a brutal story.
It's heavy, but there's so much packed in there. This one's an allegory, meaning it's got this deeper symbolic meaning. The vineyard, that's Israel. The landowner, that's God.
Okay.
The servants are the prophets. And the son, well, that's Jesus. And those tenants, they represent the religious leaders, the ones who rejected God's message and ended up facing the consequences.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what's the takeaway for us? We're not ancient vineyard tenants. How does this parable apply to our lives today?
That's a good question. It really makes you think about how we respond to God. Like, are we open to his love and grace, or are we pushing him away? Because rejecting him, yeah, that has consequences. But embracing him, that leads to something amazing.
Right. Yeah. So this parable is saying God is always there. It's up to us to choose how we respond.
Exactly. And it makes me think about, what are we doing with what God's given us? Are we taking care of it? Are we using it to make a difference? Are we producing something good with it? Or are we wasting it, like rejecting the one who gave it to us in the first place?
Yeah. It's a lot to think about. I mean, I feel like this parable, it kind of ends on a downer note, right?
Yeah.
The landowner comes and deals with the tenants who rejected his son. Is that the main takeaway here?
Yeah.
It's just a warning about God's anger.
Yeah, it definitely shows that rejecting God, that's serious business. But I don't think it's just about punishment. It's also about new beginnings. Remember, the landowner, he gives the vineyard to someone else, someone who will actually take care of it and make it produce.
Ah, okay. So there's hope too. It's not just all doom and gloom.
Exactly. God is always looking for people who will respond to him.
Yeah.
Who will do something good with what he's given them. He's not going to give up on his plan just because some people mess up.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
So like connecting this to our lives, it's not just about being afraid of judgment, but about being excited to be part of what God is doing in the world.
Yeah, for sure. We have a choice to make, right? Will we be like those tenants who turn their backs on God? Or will we be the ones who say yes to him and let him change our lives?
Big choices. It's amazing to think about all of this happening in Matthew 21. Like imagine being there, Jesus riding into Jerusalem, the temple clearing, the powerful teachings, the parables. It must have been mind-blowing.
Oh, totally. It would have been a wild ride. I mean, to see all that with your own eyes, it would have challenged everything they thought they knew about the world.
Right. Like those who were really seeking God, this would have been a huge confirmation that Jesus was the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the skeptics, they couldn't deny the power and authority of Jesus. He was clearly something special.
So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground here as we wrap up our deep dive into Matthew 21. What are the big takeaways?
I think the big one for me is that Jesus, he's not some figure from the past. He's alive and active today. And his teachings, they still matter. They still have the power to change us. And his love, it never ends.
That's so good. I think for me, it's that following Jesus is not about just going through the motions. It's about really thinking about what he taught, figuring out what it means for our lives, and then actually doing something about it, like living it out.
Yeah, I agree. It's about, aligning our hearts and our minds and our actions with what God wants, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about like flipping over those tables in our own lives, standing up for what's right, and really making a difference in the world.
Yeah. Challenge accepted. So thank you so much for helping us dive into this amazing chapter of the Bible. I've learned a lot.
Me too. It's always fun to explore these stories and see what new things we can discover.
And listeners, I hope this has sparked something in you. Like maybe go read Matthew 21 for yourself, or even the whole Gospel of Matthew. You'd be surprised at how much these ancient words can speak to you today. Think about what stood out to you, what challenged you. How can what Jesus taught shape your own faith journey?
Yeah, it's been great. So much to think about in Matthew 21. We've seen Jesus's authority, his compassion, and that challenge to, really live out our faith.
And it's not a journey we have to make alone, right? Talking about this stuff with others, it can be huge. Sharing those moments when something clicks.
Oh, yeah.
Or wrestling with the hard questions together. That's how we grow.
Totally. Like iron sharpens iron, right? We can help each other grow in our faith when we have these conversations.
So true. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Matthew 21 for today. But the exploration doesn't have to end here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're feeling inspired, crack open your Bible, read this chapter again, or maybe even the whole Gospel of Matthew. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And don't just read it, passively. Really engage with it. Ask questions, Underline things that stand out. Write down your thoughts. The more you interact with it, the more it'll change you.
And remember, faith is a journey. It's not a one-time thing. You'll have ups and downs, times when things are clear and times when they're confusing. But the important thing is you don't have to go through it alone. Keep seeking. Keep asking God for guidance, and you'll be amazed at what he can do in your life.
So good. Well, I think that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep searching, keep growing, and keep diving deep into the truth.